This is WNED, Buffalo, Toronto.
World News for Public Television is made possible in part by the William and Karen Tell Foundation.
President Yeltsin is back in hospital, suffering from pneumonia. Fighting intensifies in Chechnya, despite renewed criticism from the West. And fears of large-scale protests at the World Trade Talks in Seattle.
This is World News for Public Television with Mark Austin.
The health of the Russian President Boris Yeltsin took another turn for the worse today. What was bronchitis has, say his doctors, now turned to pneumonia. He's in hospital and will probably stay there for a week. Our Moscow correspondent Mark Webster has the latest on his condition.
Only this morning, Boris Yeltsin was determined to project the image of a strong man still in charge of his country. He was pictured apparently talking emphatically to his chief of staff about a variety of issues. But the recording was heavily edited and issued with no sound. Then this afternoon it was admitted that he was suffering from a cold while resting at his official residence, Gorky 9. Just hours later, the Russian news reported he'd been moved to hospital with suspected pneumonia. Brought here to the Central Clinical Hospital, doctors insisted his condition wasn't serious, but that he would be kept in for up to a week. He's been here several times in the past 3 years, including twice for pneumonia. After his quintuple heart bypass operation in 1996, many commentators didn't give him long to live. However, recently, he had seemed to be in much better health, appearing alongside President Clinton at the Istanbul summit less than 2 weeks ago. He made a personal appearance to underline Russia's anger at Western criticism of its war in Chechnya. While Prime Minister Vladimir Putin's been running government day to day, the president sacked his 3 predecessors in quick succession to prove he was still a political force. Fresh worries about the state of Boris Yeltsin's health come at a critical stage for the country. Some 100,000 Russian soldiers are involved in a brutal and bloody war in Chechnya. And in December, there are fresh elections to the state parliament, the Duma. Now, if ever, Russia needs strong leadership. Mark Webster, ITN for Public Television, Moscow.
Well, Russia has pressed ahead with its military offensive in rebel Chechnya despite renewed criticism from the West. It's reported that in the past 24 hours, Russian planes have made 46 bomb attacks on rebel targets in the capital Grozny and the mountainous southern regions. Russian commanders say Grozny will be totally surrounded by mid-December. Richard Slee reports.
According to Russian television reports, federal troops are advancing on all fronts surrounding Grozny. Here they're attacking a house held by Chechen rebels. But this is a region already under control of the Russian forces. The rebel fighters returned to use the 4-story building as a base to attack the troops from behind their lines. After a brief gunfight, the Russians took the house, but the Chechens had fled. In recent offensives, Russian leaders claim to have destroyed 2 arms factories in Grozny, fuel storage facilities and a communication station. The Russians have also been displaying weapons they say have been captured from Chechen rebel bases. Unconfirmed reports put the number of Russians killed in the war so far at up to 600. Even though most of the Russian onslaught has come from air attacks. The Russians appear apprehensive to launch a full-scale ground attack for fear of suffering the huge losses seen in the last Chechen war, which ended in defeat 4 years ago. It's not known how many civilians or Chechen fighters have been killed. So far, more than nearly 250,000 refugees have fled the fighting. Richard Slee, ITN for Public Television.
Protesters have disrupted the World Trade Organization conference in Seattle even before it's officially started. The police delayed opening the convention center where the conference will be held on fears that the strict security around the building had been breached. A total of 50,000 activists with interests ranging from the environment to farm subsidies are expected for what they're calling the battle in Seattle. At issue is the Geneva-based WTO's sweeping powers to enforce international trade agreements. This from ITN's Liam Halligan.
There are 135 different countries in the WTO. Based in Geneva, it's the most important international law enforcement body around. Since the 1950s, world trade has increased 14-fold. Some say that's because the WTO and its predecessor, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, has helped countries settle their commercial differences. But the WTO's become incredibly controversial. Its delegates are unelected, and some say the rich countries load the deck, exporting to the developing world while blocking poorer countries' goods at home.
I think of WTO closing my eyes, just being a mouthpiece, a legal mouthpiece now for the multinationals. I see them lessening human rights in world trade, lessening environmental standards in world trade. In fact, I see them as an entire force for evil.
While important, tension between rich and poor is in fact a subplot. The really big rows between Europe and the US. America maintains the huge subsidies paid to European farmers under the Common Agricultural Policy are protectionist. They give European exports an unfair advantage over goods from the States, and from poorer countries too.
Because the European Common Agricultural Policy generates such huge surpluses, the only way that this production-intensive policy can survive is by exporting the surpluses with large subsidies. And the impact of that is to drive down world prices, and it particularly hurts countries that can't respond with subsidies of their own.
The EU and US are also at war over beef. The Europeans don't like Uncle Sam treating his meat with hormones. The EU insists it's acting on health grounds, but the Americans say it's all about protecting home markets. And some say concern about the environment is also used as an excuse for stopping goods on commercial grounds. For those interested in high politics, the breaking story in Seattle is China. Now the world's second largest economy, the People's Republic may not hold elections, but it's done a deal with the US, which could lead to WTO membership within months. Anita Roddick says the WTO is now all about the West staying rich, rather than spreading the wealth around. She's prepared to back her views, and has given £200,000 to pressure groups travelling to Seattle.
ITN's Liam Halligan there reporting on the world trade talks in Seattle. Northern Ireland's politicians have taken what's been described as their most important step yet on the road to devolution. They've formally chosen the long-awaited power-sharing executive, which sees Unionist and Sinn Féin ministers sitting side by side for the first time. It's a crucial week for the province as the formalities of transferring power from London to Belfast begin. At the same time, the IRA is due to appoint a go-between on the issue of arms decommissioning, the controversy which has dogged the peace process. This from ITN's Gary Gibbon.
Martin McGuinness as Minister for Education.
The post could hardly be more contentious. A former IRA commander in charge of the schools of Northern Ireland. A huge step for many Northern Ireland citizens to cope with. A big step for a lifelong opponent of a province he calls an illegal statelet.
I affirm the pledge of office set out in Schedule 4 to the Northern Ireland Act 1998.
It was the high point in the dramatic unveiling of Northern Ireland's new cross-community government. Under David Trimble and the SDLP's Seamus Mallon will sit 3 Ulster Unionist ministers. Mr Trimble has distributed the spoils of peacemaking amongst loyal supporters Sir Reg MP, Sam Foster and Michael McGimpsey. 3 SDLP Assembly members will serve, Breed Rogers, Mark Durkan and Sean Farron, stalwarts of the process all. And 2 members of Ian Paisley's DUP, Peter Robinson and Nigel Dodds. Both say they won't sit with Sinn Féin in meetings. For Sinn Féin, Barbara de Bruyn will join Martin McGuinness in this extraordinary experiment in cross-community government.
I might say to the people of Northern Ireland tonight, you have seen what the official Unionist Party have done to you. They have handed over the education of your children from day one until they graduate from the university to IRA, Sinn Féin and to the SDLP.
But clearly we're at an early stage, and as you know, the twin objectives and devolution and decommissioning haven't gone away, you know.
At the Crumlin market this morning there was little excitement about impending devolution. Agriculture is the largest industry in Northern Ireland, but there's great fatalism about whether local politicians in a cross-party coalition can have much impact.
Do you think the new government's going to make a difference?
Oh, not one bit of difference, not at all.
Why not?
If you're tariffs, you'll get trouble.
The money will have to come from Whitehall or wherever it comes from, wouldn't it?
So you don't think it'll make a difference?
don't think make any difference, no.
But generally, if you're running your own hospitals, your own schools, if you've got Northern Ireland people doing it, do you think that will help, will make things better?
Let us wait and see.
You're not excited?
No. I think a lot of people are not excited either.
Northern Ireland's politicians will have an £8 billion annual budget to play with, but they know that unpopular decisions like hospital closures lie round the corner. And in just about every issue lurks a potential sectarian dispute. The Assembly's weighted voting system was designed to smooth over such feelings, but earlier today it was sidestepped in a procedural fiddle when Seamus Mallon couldn't get enough unionist votes to win back the Deputy First Minister job he'd resigned in July.
If on day one they don't have the numbers to get this through, how long are they going to allow the farce and charade to last?
Gary Gibbon reporting from Belfast. Still to come on World News for Public Television. What black police officers in Britain are doing to beat racism in the force. And Sing Sing, the giant panda, is put to sleep. Black British police officers have launched their own organisation amid widespread allegations of institutional racism. Recent statistics show that black police officers in Britain are twice as likely as their white counterparts to resign, 3 times as likely to be dismissed, and have fewer chances of promotion. Jane Dodge reports.
Today's launch was the largest ever gathering of black police staff in Britain. The emphasis was on the fight for equality, following in the footsteps of Stephen Lawrence's parents.
These black officers have been doing a lot of good things, and it should be publicised and make them feel proud of what they're doing, just like anybody else.
The image of the police has certainly undergone something of a revolution. There is a lingering sense of colonialism in the Dixon of Dock Green era. These days there are more than 2,000 black police officers in Britain. The image may have changed, but attitudes still have some way to go.
Comments have been made, niggers, spooks, packies, and sometimes I've gone home and cried, and a couple of times I nearly resigned because I just thought, what am I doing? Nobody really wants me here.
Marcia is in the West Midlands Police Force. It has one of the highest ratios of non-white officers in the UK, but only half a dozen of them have reached the rank of inspector. A branch of the Black Police Association has been set up here, but there's been a hostile response from some white officers.
Certainly in the West Midlands, despite the fact that Chief Constable was very supportive of it, we did have comments that it was divisive, that there was no need for it. We had the federation, and people actually said, well, we'll set up a white organisation as well.
This rap video is just one of the latest attempts by the police to recruit more black officers. Up until now, it's been the job of the Police Federation to represent them once they join. But its efforts, including a recent poster campaign, have been seen by many as ineffective and misguided.
Given the culture of the police service, it's often not within the interest of the Police Federation to progress these issues too vocally, because they're vote losers. Because black issues within the police service have traditionally never been aired, never deemed to be important until very recently.
Well, some accuse us of that, and I understand why they're accusing us of that. But I mean, I look at our record, I look at our equality record for the last 10 years. I look at what we've produced in terms of leaflets, in pamphlets. I know about the rhetoric and the speeches that we've made, but we put our money where our mouth is as well. We've represented black officers for the last 10 years on discrimination cases, through employment tribunals, and we've spent lots of money in making sure that we not only talk the talk, but we walk the walk.
The government obviously feels the National Black Police Association is a necessary part of the equation. It's funding it and even providing a room in the Home Office for its headquarters. Any suggestion such a relationship is a little too cosy is dismissed by the association's new chairman.
I think what we've got to do as a National Black Police Association is to demonstrate to police officers, to the community at large, that we are an independent organisation, that we can and will criticise both the Home Office, various police forces when appropriate. And I think if we do that, we are seen to be independent, we will gain our credibility.
All forces, including Marcia's employer, West Midlands Police, have been given targets to recruit and retain more black officers. Marcia's son, Matthew, could be one of them. but she's ambiguous about such a prospect.
I joined the police service to make a difference. I joined the BPA to make a difference, and I would not like him to go through some of the negative experiences I have had. I have had some good times, but I have had some bad times.
With two of her colleagues having just settled cases of racism against their employer, Marcia believes there's still a long way to go before equality is a reality, not just an aspiration.
Jane Dodge reporting. The authorities in South Africa have offered $160,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of those responsible for the bomb attack at a restaurant which injured 48 people. The bomb exploded in a packed pizza house at the popular Camps Bay beach resort near Cape Town yesterday. There was no warning, and so far no one has claimed responsibility for the blast. In Malaysia, Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamed's ruling coalition has been voted back into power despite a year of political turmoil. Asia's longest-serving elected leader now begins a fifth term in office. He defeated a strong challenge from the wife of Mahathir's arch-foe, Anwar Ibrahim, although she did win her race in her husband's former constituency in the northern state of Penang. In every industry across the world, firms are gearing up for the possible consequences of the Millennium bug. Few could be more catastrophically affected than power companies. But even in nuclear power plants, questions are still being asked about how reactors in both the East and the West will deal with the problem. This from Ian Booth.
Engineers at this nuclear power plant have spent nearly 4 years and millions of dollars in an attempt to make sure nothing goes wrong. Information technology specialists identified 65,000 pieces of equipment that could potentially be affected by the bug. British Nuclear Fuels, which runs the site, is confident that the Millennium will pose no problems. Nuclear reactors here were built in the 1950s. That was before the advent of computer chips and therefore should be immune.
It's important to stress that reactors, modern plants such as this, the fundamental safety of the plant is deliberately designed to be dependent on very simple technology. So for instance, a reactor, to shut down a reactor, you're dependent on mechanical devices dropping control rods into the core of the reactor, soaking up the neutrons and stopping the reaction. Now that's a mechanical process. It doesn't involve electronic devices. It certainly doesn't involve intelligent devices, and so it's not affected by year 2000.
After September's nuclear accident in Japan, the danger of nuclear power plants have once again been in the headlines. The environmental pressure group Greenpeace believes that while the reactors may be safe from the effects of the bug, other systems which the nuclear plants rely on may not be safe.
One of the main scenarios of concern that John Large identified was if there was a problem outside the reactor that caused the electricity grid to fail and power was lost to the site. That would mean you had to have emergency shutdown of reactors, you'd have to have continued backup power for cooling nuclear waste, and all those systems could themselves be subject to the Millennium bug, so there could be potentially a serious accident.
Well, we clearly have our eyes open. We'll have our eyes on the rest of the world. Of course, we've got the benefit here in the West that we've got Japan going through the Millennium 9 hours earlier, New Zealand 12 hours earlier. We'll get some idea of what's going on in the rest of the world.
The biggest concern, as Greenpeace sees it, is countries where it may be more difficult to prepare for the bug, such as Eastern Europe, Russia and the former Soviet states. One of those former communist states, Ukraine, is home to the world's most infamous nuclear plant, Chernobyl. The number 4 reactor melted down in April 1986, spewing radiation over large parts of Europe. The plant still operates today, but Ukraine's deputy energy minister has ruled out a repeat of the disaster.
Computers at nuclear power plants are not likely to cause any problem. Specialists know that their control systems don't have any equipment with real-time mode, so this guarantees nuclear safety. Besides that, there is an external factor which can threaten safety. The global energy system is interconnected. If something happens in Europe, it can disrupt our energy system. But as to the computers within the station, nothing can happen.
But despite the assurances, there'll still be concern among members of the public until the dawn of the new millennium has passed. Ian Booth, ITN, for Public Television.
The giant panda Sing Sing, who became a symbol of friendship between China and America during the early 1970s, has been put to sleep in Washington after a long illness. Sing Sing was a gift from China following President Nixon's visit to Beijing in 1972, which opened up diplomatic ties between the two nations. Here's Lawrence McGuinty.
Despite a series of illnesses in recent years, Sing Sing was a firm favourite at Washington Zoo. He recovered from testicular cancer, but was suffering from arthritis. Earlier this year, vets discovered he had kidney disease too, and despite treatment, the condition worsened. But he'd lived a long life, 28 panda years.
Everything became an effort for him. It was an effort for him to get up. It was an effort for him to eat. And he was very, very tired. And yesterday, after basically about 3 very bad days, we decided that it was time.
Sing Sing and his mate Ling Ling were given to the zoo in 1972. She died 7 years ago after producing 5 baby pandas, none of whom survived. They were a gift after President Nixon's pioneering visit to China, which opened up diplomatic relations between China and the West.
It is not just the passing of an animal, it is a major symbol of a relationship that exists between the United States and China, and I'm certain that there will be those who will want to keep that symbolism alive.
Sing Sing developed a sweet tooth, not only birthday cakes but also blueberry muffins, which vets doped with his drugs, in the end to no avail. The zoo may get another panda, but Sing Sing is irreplaceable to his admirers. Lawrence McGuinty, ITN.
There was a special mass this morning at the church just outside London where a naked man went berserk with a samurai's sword during a Sunday service. 8 people are still in hospital after yesterday's attack. The priest who presided over the service said all the church could offer at the moment was silence and prayers. Police are questioning a man over the incident. From the scene, Helen Wright reports.
Many of those who witnessed yesterday's terrifying events returned to St Andrew's Church this morning for Mass, to reflect on what happened and to pray for those who were injured.
I think the whole community is just devastated, but we kind of try and pull together. I think that's all you can do, really, is to be there for one another and just to help each other.
Also in the congregation today, as he was yesterday, a journalist from the Independent newspaper who described how he and his fellow worshippers are coping with what they saw.
Those memories are already starting to haunt people. A lot of children slept very badly last night. Some of them will have missed school today. There is a sense of trying to get on with things. Parents are very anxious to get their children back to school. There were a lot of children who were at the Mass yesterday. Many of the smallest ones were in the hall at the side of the church, and as the crowd stampeded out of the main church building, they stampeded through the hall and carried the younger children with them out into the street.
But the only evidence of yesterday's horror still in the church is a space where an organ pipe was ripped away by an off-duty police officer and another man to fend off the sword-wielding attacker.
They behaved very bravely to try to defend as many of the people as they could, and they were able to restrain the attacker until the police arrived.
As police question a 26-year-old man about this incident, 6 people who were injured at the service are still being treated here at the Mayday Hospital. One of them remains in intensive care. Helen Wright, ITN, Croydon.
And now for a look again at today's top stories. The health of Russia's President Boris Yeltsin took another turn for the worse today. What was bronchitis has, say his doctors, turned into pneumonia. He's in hospital and will probably stay there for a week. Russia has pressed ahead with its military offensive in rebel Chechnya despite renewed criticism from the West. It's reported that in the past 24 hours, Russian planes have made 46 bomb attacks on rebel targets in the capital Grozny and the mountainous southern regions. Russian commanders say Grozny will be totally surrounded by mid-December. Northern Ireland's politicians have taken what's been described as their most important step yet on the road to devolution. They've formally chosen the long-awaited power-sharing executive, which sees Unionist and Sinn Féin ministers sitting side by side for the first time. And protesters have already disrupted preparations for tomorrow's World Trade Organization conference in Seattle. The police had to delay opening the conference venue, fearing the strict security around the building had been breached by some of the 50,000 activists expected. And finally, police in Paris are taking unusual measures to stay one step ahead as they try to keep control of the boulevards. The new threat to law and order comes every Friday night and Sunday afternoon when thousands of rollerbladers take to the streets. From Paris, Bill Neely reports.
They block the streets on weekends. They